Okay, all right. Good evening. Welcome to the Ayurvedic Cafe 11. It's Noreen Dillman with Jim Pace. And this evening we have a wonderful topic, AMA and beyond, the 4 types of toxins
Oh,
according to...
no, that was last week.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's last week. Sorry about that. We'll start all over again. Let me just find the topic. Let me find my email. This is why we're live. We make mistakes. Okay. Hold on. Just a moment. Bear with me. Bear with me. See.
We had,
It's EMF, right?
yeah, tonight, no. No one
EMF. Got you. Oh, EMF. Hold on. Hold on. We got it. Good thing we have an editor. We can edit. Okay. Good. All right. Well, we'll start from the top. Good evening. This is Noreen Dillman for the Ayurvedic Cafe, and this evening I'm with Jim Pace, and we have a wonderful topic for you this evening. Jim will be talking about EMFs specifically, in particular SV Ayurveda's teachings on EMFs, and these are electromagnetic frequencies, and how they disrupt our health and how to actually remedy or pacify their influence. Specifically, EMFs are the invisible forces emanating from power lines, cell phones, appliances, computers. We hear a lot about them in the media. There's all kinds of things and devices you can buy to protect yourself. They also include electromagnetic pollution. They directly cause or contribute to imbalances and disease. Science News Online states magnetic fields may be the quintessential endocrine disrupting pollutant. From SV Ayurveda perspectives, EMFs pollute and they corrupt the nadis, which are our vibrational channels. And therefore, they disturb our mental, physical, sensory, emotional, and spiritual health. Tonight, Jim will be covering several main points, including what are EMFs, these vibrational toxins, how EMFs pollute the environment, how they enter the body, how vibrational poisoning writes over the bodies and the environment's natural rhythm, 8 main gateways through which EMFs enter the body and mind, how EMFs weaken the pranic energy of the body, signs and symptoms of EMF toxicity, and protections and countermeasures for vibrational pollution. I mean, that's probably the most important, the last one, because we can't avoid them. We live in the modern world, so we're not going to be living in caves. So Jim, take it from the top. What do you have to say about EMFs?
Well, I'd first like to say that this is a very brief talk tonight, and there's a lot of detail I'm going to skip over that I would probably present in a longer course of 2 or 3 hours. And in fact, if anyone is interested, before I forget to mention it, if you would like to go to SV Ayurveda Teachable website, you can see different courses on EMF, one of which was 2.5 hour or so talk I gave at Revelations Cafe a few years ago, and it's posted on the Teachable website.
Okay, so what you're saying is that tonight is really just an overview.
Very brief.
You're going to touch on some of the main points, but if anybody wants to go more in depth with Vajra Mishra's SV Ayurveda's approach to EMFs, then check out the website, and there is a much longer and much more in detail course on there.
Right, and there's a DVD set by Vajra Mishra you can get on chandika.com. But so for those whose interest has been piqued enough for that, to go into more deeper understanding. Today, a lot of scientific research, as we know, everyone's heard of this EMF, and it's nothing, it's new, still kind of new, but 10 or 15 years ago, there wasn't that much known about it or research done on EMF. But Vajra Mishra was aware of this issue a long time before the scientific community started looking at it and more, went into more research into how it affects living beings. But he knew about it long ago, and he used to say that he knew someday the scientific research would catch up with his understanding, his lineages, his SV Ayurveda lineage understanding. Speaking of which, as a matter of fact, it was quite new to him. I don't know how many years ago would it have been? 23, close to 30 years ago. He was out of India, his village, or not his village necessarily, but he was out of India in England, in London, and he was doing Ayurvedic consultations. And, he said that feeling the pulse of people that he was having consultations with, he noticed an odd rhythm that he never detected in any pulse that he took in his village or his practice, even in the bigger cities in India. But he was feeling that, and he didn't know what it was. So he said that he called his father up, who was still alive at the time, taking care of his family in India. And that his father told him that, well, I'm not going to give you the answer at this moment, but I did tell you whenever you go to a new place, you have to don't start practicing immediately. Observe what's different and unique about the people, the environment, everything basically, and take some time to digest all those different new factors, because everything affects health, and then start your practice. So see what's unique to that environment. He said he was looking out the window, and he said something like he was near the palace in London, and he saw electronic towers and antennas and everything, and he thought, oh, that's what it is. It's this high level of electricity and communication devices here in London, which I didn't have growing up in the village. So he said, so I called my father.
Well, I just want to interject for a moment. I actually love that because, anytime we're in a new environment, the power of observation. So don't rush in and try to make all sorts of changes, or just take some time to be steeped in that environment and to observe, well, what's happening in this environment, what's different about this environment, how do I feel in this environment. So that's kind of Ayurveda 101 right there.
The environment, what people are eating, that may be quite different.
Immersing yourself in, how can you possibly develop an understanding without observation?
So you're right. So he did. He came to that conclusion. He said he meditated, and he realized that the unique factor that was not in his practice so much in the village, in India, was there wasn't all that electrical overload. So he said he got back in touch with his father, who reminded him of the 6 or 7 times that they would do house calls in the village in the monsoon season, which you can even see in Bihar especially, they have a lot of deaths due to lightning strikes. Many places in India, but Bihar, where you grew up, was one of the top for deaths due to lightning during monsoon. So he said his father told him that seems to be just a modern problem, but it's actually there in the ancient scriptures, in the Puranas, and in certain areas of Ayurveda. And he told his father, said, we have the knowledge. He said he reminded Raj's father reminded him that some of the protocols they would do for these people who were, of course, not the dead people, but the people who weren't killed, but were affected by lightning, because lightning can, doesn't have to hit you directly. It can affect a broader area. And so they would do a mud bath, a clay bath. They would have people lay on the earth. They would have people hug and hold trees. They had different protocols to help with people whose nervous system got impacted by lightning. And so as time went on, Vajra said he began to see more and more imbalances in the pulse reading due to EMF. One of the imbalances that he would see is the rhythm of the pulse. That's called, in Ayurvedic terminology, we call it laya. Laya means rhythm. Our pulse should be very rhythmic at all levels, because there's different levels of pulse reading. So when you see a chaotic pulse, and there's degrees of chaos in the pulse reading, you can be sure that the person is not doing great. Sometimes the laya will correct itself. You get out in the forest and get away from the EMF, it'll come back to normal. So that's one of the things he saw, imbalance in the rhythm of the pulse, which means we're not connected and not coping up. We're not connected and coordinated with the cosmic energy. If our rhythm is out of balance, it means we have some kind of internal lack of rhythmic connection and coordination with the cosmic energy of prana, which is in nature and our food and our good water. And then another factor which he taught me, and he would test me many times when we were seeing patients at my home, he would say, James, tell me which side of the pulse, which means which side of the body, left side, right side, is slower for pranic delivery, pranic reception and delivery. And I would sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong. It was a new concept to me at the time, determining the flow of prana in the body. But what it does mean is, but you will find that quite often that one side seems slower and one side seems okay. And it means whatever side getting less prana means the organs and systems on that side of the body are under stress and have a greater potential to become imbalanced and sick in the future, depending on which side it is. So on the right side, your liver could be impacted more. So on the left side, could be the left kidney, could be toward the pancreas. But EMF, basically to make it short, EMF will impact the flow of prana on different sides of the body. Usually one side gets slow, the other side's still doing okay. And that means when there's less prana, there's less support from nature's healing intelligence, which that's what prana is. But as Noreen mentioned, we have to cope up with EMF this day and age. Everybody has cell phones, computers, and electrical devices. And even if you don't have your own, you're going to be impacted by the Wi-Fi's from your neighbor. If you go to New York City and open your phone and look for the Wi-Fi signals that are available, could be hundreds in one square block of potential Wi-Fi's that are impacting your health. So even if you don't use those devices, they're still affecting you. So the dirty energy, this vibrational pollution, is all around us. But I mentioned before that Vajra Mishra said he never talked about anything, because his father taught him never talk about anything theoretically unless you have a practical way to address that, what you're talking about. He said, my father said, always be practical. Don't just talk theory. And Vajra Mishra developed hundreds of products for so many reasons based upon that advice to be practical. So he developed protocols and products and diets and other remedies to help us with EMF disturbances. So, but I'll get to those a little bit later. But I should say again, what does Ayurveda tell us? It tells us all the possible reasons for diseases, right? All the hetu, all the possible reasons we could become imbalanced and ill and get some serious disease or just imbalances. And these vibrational toxins, if that's true, then it has a remedy for EMF. So because these vibrational toxins are considered a hetu, an etiological factor, and therefore Ayurveda should be able to help us. So we talked about, I don't want to give the, in my talk, I go into a lot of background about what is prana. We talked about that already. Prana has Agni, Soma, and Marut components. There's a lot we can say about prana. That's a whole another hour's course, but we talked about that a little bit. And
well, do you want to touch on that briefly, just how it relates? Because
well, it relates because
an important
yeah,
component of the EMFs, right?
I'll make it very easy. Prana, we say, is God's power. It creates us. It creates everything.
Yeah.
It comes from Om. It's that specific vibration in action. That's we can say it has a components like although it's one thing, we talk about prana like one thing, but prana is a vibrational energy which has kind of a soma, lunar energy in our universe, our earth, stabilizing, growth giving energy, cooling, nurturing, and then Agni, the transforming, metabolizing energy, and then Marut, the etheric circulating space energy. And they all three work together. But there's sometimes a predominance of one. You drink milk, good milk, you've got more soma. You eat chili, you got more Agni. You eat salad, lettuce, you've got more Marut coming into your body. So these three energies get impacted. I'll talk more about that. But so prana is that what keeps us healthy, basically, according to.
And so what you're indicating is prana has these components of soma, agni, and marut.
It has that, and especially soma is what gets impacted the most by EMF. Prana itself gets impacted overall, but especially the soma vibration.
The component of soma is most impacted versus agni and marut.
They get impacted, but they disturb the soma. I'll go a little bit more. I'll have to explain that a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah.
So, just as our body has these, we say the body, and I talked about that last week in the toxins. There's water-soluble toxins and there's lipid-soluble toxins. There's also vibrational toxins, and EMF are a vibrational soluble toxins. They affect the nadis, which carry and deliver prana even to the subatomic level, to every organ and system, to every atom, to every molecule that makes our body up. At the deepest level, the vibrational level, prana is creating us, structuring us, and governing us. They govern the doshas. They create the doshas and they govern the doshas as pranic energy. So there's a vibrational soluble toxin which disturbs the nadis. The nadis carry the pranic energy. The prana, there are 72,000 vibrational channels which get disturbed by EMF, and they get disturbed in different ways. I'll talk more about that. So should talk about it right now, actually. So prana has these three components: Agni, Soma, Marut. Then EMF is like a corrupt pranic energy that enters the body the same way prana comes in, through the mouth, through the nose, through the ears, through the eyes, through the skin, and through the. So it comes in the same way. We call it one of Dr. Mishra's, Vajra Mishra's students in Pennsylvania coined the term. It's a synthetic prana, and that was a very good description of EMF. It's like a synthetic prana, and it mixes in the nadis with the real deal, the real prana, but it doesn't do what real prana does. In fact, it corrupts what real prana does. It interferes with it, but it mixes in with it like a synthetic substance that blends right in there into the nadis. But there are two. See, there's EMF is like a corrupt kind of marut energy, circulating etheric energy. It's a visha. It's actually a visha. That's called. Well, excuse me. I want to back up a little bit because I didn't go into the detail of. I should go into a little more detail about why we call it what we call it. What does Ayurveda call this toxin, right? Let me go to that. We in Ayurveda had a word for this toxin based upon the lightning thousands of years ago called Indra Vajra Abhijanya Visha. And taking care of this problem is called Indra Vajra Abhijanya Visha Hara. Hara means to take away. So it's Indra is a god, and he has a thunderbolt. It's called his Vajra. And Vijanya means created by Indra's thunderbolt. So in a way, these EMFs that we have they're not lightning, but they act like lightning does, but only more slowly. Lightning does the same kind of damage very quickly, burning out the nervous system, burning up tissues, even death, but it does it very powerfully and quickly when you get directly hit. But it can also affect people long-term because there are lightning survivors and they were near somebody who got hit or near a tree that got hit by lightning, but they were affected and they have lingering health issues due to this lightning strike, even if they weren't directly hit. So it's like, are you still there, Noreen? Because you went away. Hello?
Jim, I'm here. I'm just going to step away for a second, but you continue on.
Okay, I'll continue. So Indra's thunderbolt, it means it's created, that's why we call it Indra Vajra Abhijanya. It's created by Indra's thunderbolt. And we have Vishahara Visha means it's a poison. Hara means protocols to take that poison away. So, but I was talking about how it's a corrupt synthetic prana, which has a lot of marut energy. EMF has a lot of circulating etheric energy, but in a very corrupt, dumb, non-intelligent way. And it dries out the soma that's in the nadis. And when the soma gets dried out, the nadis become constricted or narrow. It means they can't carry as much prana. When that soma goes down, it means they can't carry as much prana. And we need a lot, or as much soma, and we need a lot of soma this day and age. We need that lunar cooling energy more than we need Agni and Marut, basically. And then when the Marut sucks out the soma, means the Agni, soma balances Agni, the Agni goes higher. So the fire goes higher, and so does the Marut. So that's due to EMF, but there's another problem we talk about, Vajra talks about, that's EMR. And EMR is electromagnetic radiation. This is not from your electronic devices. Well, it is. One is like a corrupt etheric energy, but the EMR is like a corrupt Agni. And we even get EMR from the sun. But we also get EMR from X-rays, from medical X-rays, from EMRs are present in the microwaves, which we should not use microwaves, and if you do, but don't be close to it while it's in operation. And there's also background radiation in nature, gamma rays and other sources of from the earth itself and from the heavens that are type of EMR. So this is hot. They're hot. They're Agneya. They're full of Agni. Whereas EMF, the electromagnetic fields, are more corrupt etheric energy. But in both cases, they suck out the soma. Means ojas goes down. Ojas, which is anybody familiar with Ayurveda has heard of ojas. So when the soma creates ojas. So when soma goes down, ojas goes down. Immunity goes down, resistance goes down. Anything can happen when ojas goes low. But EMF, basically, it disturbs the rhythm of the pulse, very important. It disturbs the nadis cannot carry as much prana, and the prana they do carry, the soma is going down. So there's less soma going throughout the body. There's a corrupt Agni, there's a corrupt Marut. And not only do these factors disturb what's in the body, they also disturb in the environment. Like my computer that I'm talking to you right now on, I can feel the energy. It is sucking the soma out of the environment around me, actually, which led Vajramishra to make a product called Blissful Awakening Spray to spray around your computer to give an hour or two worth of protection, to put more soma to soak up. It has pure sandalwood and other ingredients, but the sandalwood part of the Blissful Awakening can actually absorb the corrupt EMF even around your computer, and that means you get less of it when you're. That's. I wish I had someone with me tonight to spray around the computer to absorb the EMF. So the soma goes down in the environment and in our bodies. Soma transforms to ojas. Soma transforms to kapha. And then we have a third type of vibrational pollution, which he talked less about, but he mentioned it. That's called RF, radio frequencies. And what are they? They are the Wi-Fi's. They are the TV signals that travel from the station 100 miles away or whatever, from the satellites, from anything that's in the distance, travels through the ether. You know, your computer, your cell phone, if you go 20, 30 feet away, they're not going to bother you. No problem. You get away from them. You know, they're too far. That EMF field drops off very short distance from the device, unless it's high tension power lines, which we see crossing the country. They have quite a much wider field of influence on us, perhaps even hundreds of yards away from that kind of power. But these little devices, appliances and computers and cell phones, their range of influence is not very far. But then the Wi-Fi's and other things, they travel far, but they don't disturb the nadis as much as they disturb, and I won't go into detail because it's too complicated. They disturb something called the gaps, the pure space element. But they create problems, but they disturb something called the sandhis, the gaps. So because we don't want to run out of time before I get to some important points. Prana enters our body through the eyes. They enter through the body through the nadis, basically. They enter through there are nadis connected with your eyes, there are nadis connected with your nose. The spinal cord main nadi gets really impacted by EMF, the Sushumna nadi. And every pore of your skin is connected to nadis. So synthetic prana comes in the same way as real prana. But Vajramishra says if we can take care of 10 main nadis, we can do a lot to wipe out the imbalancing effect of the EMFs. So Vajramishra like to say that these nadis are supposed to receive pure prana, not polluted prana. And he said that God made the nadis very powerful to handle and withstand a lot of vibrational pollution. But then he also said, with a little laugh, that it looks like even God did not know just how much vibrational pollution we would have to face in the modern age. If you're interested on Chandi, they have a beautiful poster of these nadis and how EMFs enter to the nadis that you can get on chandika.com. It's a color poster with all detailed information of the nadis, their names, and how prana comes in through those nadis. And one other thing that's very important to notice, when our nadis get impacted, not only do doshas go out of balance, and we have less ojas because soma is going down, also our ability, because they govern everything, nadis govern our detox power. It governs the nadis are actually creating the shrotas. They're very closely related. There's an interaction between the vibrational channels and the physical channels which are numberless, billions of channels which carry nutrition to wherever it needs to be, or some kind of material, and take away the waste products and toxins. So when these schrotas get impacted due to EMF, they lose their intelligence because nadis govern schrotas, they create them. Then our detox power goes down too. So we retain more physical toxins. We retain more waste products of the body, even the normal waste products such as the stools and the sweat, and urine can get impacted, as well as the waste products of each tissue transformation. So Vajra Mishra, I'm going to try to get a little more into some of the things he recommended to do, like, let's say, our Ida Pingala Nadi, which receives pranic energy. The Ida left side gets more soma, the Pingala, the right side, this is connected to our spinal energy, gets more Agni. He made a special nose drop, a nasya oil called Ida Pingala oil, to help empower the nadis to resist being corrupted by EMF. It gives them more powerful to resist being corrupted, because we all react differently to these forces. Some people handle them pretty well, others don't. I have met people who cannot go near computers. They told me so, several people. They can't be around Wi-Fi. I've talked to people here in Fairfield who've told me that. They don't have Wi-Fi in their house. They try to live away from people. So people have different sensitivity to these EMFs. Usually the younger we are, the more ojus we have, the more we can cope up with these factors. But I've also met people that worked, a lot of Indian IT people in New Jersey where I used to live. We had many Indians that were IT workers, and they had 12 hours a day of exposure from multiple computers in one room. Not just one computer, but multiple computers. And to help these people, Vajra Mishra developed a protocol. He called it the vibrational cleansing protocol, which I have given to people. And I had one Indian gentleman come to my house after a workshop I gave and laid on my table, and I gave him vibrational cleansing. And I didn't have anything to do afterwards, so clean house and what. So I let him sleep. He slept 2 hours on my massage table after that treatment. 2 hours, and he woke up and I said, "How you feel?" And he went, "I feel great." And I said, "Well, yeah, you've been sleeping for two hours." No, he said, "I feel really great," because, and he was so impressed by the technique, the vibrational cleansing technique, that he formed a Yahoo group called EMF Warriors. So it's a very powerful technique to handle EMF. I might start giving this protocol in Fairfield very soon. I've been thinking about it. It's very simple, but it's very, very powerful to help remove EMF and empower the nadis to resist further corruption by EMF. So again, the nadis are connected to our sense organs, such as our eyes. So your eyes are not just to see, your ears are not there just to hear. In fact, all 5 senses receive prana. You look at you look at a big body of water, you get more soma. You look at the moon, you get soma. You feel good because you're getting that stabilizing lunar energy through your sense organs. And again, so in 1991, Vajra said when he first started seeing the rhythmic imbalance in the pulse was 1991. And he said there wasn't much research. He tried to research it scientifically, what was out there at that time, and there wasn't much available about EMF toxicity. So he said, I thought to myself that I had to stay on my path. I have to trust what I was seeing, and I have to trust my lineage. So even before it became popular to talk about EMF, he said he developed these 11 tips to help people cope up with EMF. and they're just called 11 tips for EMF management. And people would do these tips, and I was one of those people, and they would tell them how much better they would feel after following the protocol. One of which his protocols is, I wish I had time to demonstrate it, it's called a vibrational cleansing protocol. It takes 7 to 10 minutes to do. And when I do it, I don't do it enough, honestly. I feel better immediately, even after that 7 or 10 minute little we call it a vibrational massage, or a massage, we call it. It helps remove the EMF from the nadis. So basically, when soma goes down in the nadis, they shrink, they work less efficiently, and they carry less prana. And they also disturb all your Agni, all your metabolic fires get disturbed, because we say Agni sets in the gaps, which is just the pure space. It's like the flame. It's like you have when your burner on your stove is nothing but a gas stove, is nothing but holes, right? But those holes are the intelligence. Those are like gaps. The fire depends upon the intelligence of those empty spaces, the gaps. So Agni gets disturbed. And so you can't, when EMF builds up, you receive as much prana, you can't deliver as much prana, and your digestive powers become weakened. But Sandhis is a little bit difficult to talk about in a short time. So I'm going to skip over that. A lot of scientific research, EMFs impact the cellular system. There's studies been done that there's a higher risk of childhood leukemia because there are gaps in the DNA that get disturbed. This is why it's really good not to hand these electronic devices to kids. I'm so glad I'm glad I did not personally grow up with cell phones. I remember a time I was at Rutgers University, and I was invited by the Rutgers Indian student body president to give a talk on Ayurveda and to take pulses of the Indian students. And these are, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. And I was amazed at how the imbalances that I could feel in their pulses, which shouldn't be there at that age. It shouldn't be there. Everyone, not just 1 or 2 people, but all 10 or 15 people whose pulse I felt. And I talked to one young lady, and I felt her pulse, and I mentioned, "Are you having menstrual difficulties?" She said, "I sure am." I said, "Do you work with a laptop on your lap?" "Oh, I do, for hours and hours." I said, "You got to stop that. You got to put your laptop on a table, get it off your lap." I don't know if she did, but this was probably one of the root causes of her menstrual difficulties. Let me try to go on a little bit. So, Vajra did a lot of research, diseases that were created by EMF, but in general, tingling and numbness of the skin, lack of enthusiasm are signs and symptoms of EMF. There are other reasons, but sometimes it's just EMF. He said he had one IT worker from, I think it was Northern California, or came to see him, and he said, "Oh, my doctors are ready to put me on psychotropic drugs. I'm very depressed." And Vajra had just came out with his 11 tips for computer workers, especially for computer workers, but for all of us. And the guy, Vajra Mishra, says, "I don't think you need psychotropic drugs. You're an IT worker. You work around EMF all day long, 6 days a week. I think you just need to take care of this problem of EMF." And the guy followed his advice very strictly, and he was much, much better. He didn't go on the psychotropic drugs. He wasn't depressed anymore, because these EMFs can close our heart lotus. They try to suck out soma, and the heart lotus is like a nadi. It needs a lot of soma to keep the lotus open, just like the lotus setting in the water. It has to have water. So the lotus closes down. We talked about this heart lotus, how it closes down to protect the glue, the param ojas, the 8 drops of ojas that glue the soul to the lotus and through the lotus to the physiology. So the lotus will close down due to these EMF. That's why a person can be very cheerful and happy in the morning, be on that computer, be on the phone, cell phone for hours. By afternoon, they feel depressed, they feel less enthusiastic, they feel less mentally sharp because it disturbs D, Driti, and Smriti. I talked about that last week, I believe. Memory, learning, retaining, and remembering. They disturb that. 2, they disturb everything emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So they disturb our heart lotus. Heart lotus will shut down when there's a lot of EMF. And Vajra had a tip for that. He said, wear a shawl or a silk shirt, has to be natural raw silk, or wool. Wool's a good protection for the chest against EMF, but the best protection is raw silk. So people can wear some kind of raw silk shawl, or if they don't have that, they can use a wool shawl, which is not as good, but still good, a real wool shawl. So this will help protect your physical heart from EMF as well as your heart lotus. So here again, he says, you know, it affects our sadak pitta. It affects that flame called sadak agni. So he says, you know, you're doing everything good. You're eating good. You're going to bed on time. You take care of your health, but you work on the computer all day and you feel sad for no reason. And you get overwhelmed by any little thing. So sad for no reason is a sign and symptom. It's a linga. We call it linga sign of EMF. Other reasons could be there, but that is one thing that it can do. It can make us feel sad for no reason. And then it can affect our ability to absorb and process vitamin D because it can affect our Brajak Pitta, which governs all the transformations of the skin. So the sun rays, UVB rays, don't get absorbed properly. They don't get processed properly by the skin to make vitamin D. So EMFs are going to affect vitamin D synthesis. And then marmas, we talked about marmas in a previous cafe, how the marmas get impacted by EMF. They also get damaged. So I told you the story about the guy who came to my course and he started his warriors. I'm looking through my notes. So one of the great techniques he had for EMF management was spinal swapping, because Sushumna nadi of the spine is the most important nadi of all the nadis. That's the most important one. So he has a swapping down the spine using DGL transdermal cream or roll-on 7 to 14 times, always top down. And this is for anyone. Almost anyone can do this and benefit from it. Get the DGL transdermal cream or roll-on. We have 2 formulas. One's cream, one's a ball roll-on. Have someone swipe down your spine at bedtime. Used to do it with my ex-wife. It was very wonderful thing to do before going to sleep. Whether you have EMF overload or not, it's still wonderful, but it really helps with EMF. Swipe down the spine with DGL, 7 minimum, but up to 21 times. And then follow that with PranaFlow cream or roll-on. Again, 7 times, 14 or 21, always from the base of the neck to the tailbone. Always down, not back and forth. That's called spinal swapping. That really gives that main nadi that on the spine, Sushumna nadi, which carries a tremendous amount of marut pranic energy. It will help clean it and empower it. So that's one, swapping. And then samadhi set. I mentioned doing the samadhi set of the different roll-ons. I mentioned that will help keep your heart lotus open, especially. It'll also give your brain more power to resist EMF, your brain and mind. But there's a samadhi set, which is great for EMF. I talked about this samadhi set in a previous workshop on the heart lotus. And Vajramishra even has mantras you can chant. There's a mind mantra. So while you're using Brahmi transdermal roll-on or cream, you can chant the mind mantra. That's available on chandika.com. All these mantras for different, like mantras for the liver, for the spine. There's a spine mantra. There's an eye mantra. You can use these mantras to make your nadis more powerful too, because they're vibrational, they're sound. They immediately work because they are sound. They are vibration. So they're very effective, the use of mantras to empower our nadis, which carry vibrational energy, because the mantra is a vibration, all these different mantras, and they will impact the nadis immediately. What else we can talk about? So I mentioned the Blissful Awakening spray, to spray on your face or around your computer. That's very nice to give you more soma. It will give you more soma, and at the same time help absorb the corrupt marut and agni in your environment, in your local environment. So you can, just be sure you close your eyes before you spray your face with it. And then we have the Ida and Pingala oil for the nose. And we have a karna oil for the ears. It's called karna. Karna is just a Sanskrit word for ears. So, because these ears are absorbing a lot of marut energy. Again, the senses aren't there just to hear or to see or to feel. They're there to get prana. So the Ida Pingala to empower the nadis of the nose, and the karna oil for the ears. And also on top of your head, Maha Marma oil. Because this is called the Adipati Marma, the most important and powerful marma of the body. It's receiving direct cosmic energy from Om. And primarily it receives Marut predominant energy. Marut becomes Agni and with Marut. And anyways, the whole sequence. But Marut is coming through the Adipati Marma. And it gets it's a very powerful marut, and it gets transformed by a filter on top of the head called the Brahmarandra, because it's too powerful to receive all that cosmic energy. The body has to modify it, has to transform it. But the Adipati Marma, if you put the Mahamarma oil going clockwise with your ring finger, there's an indentation. That's where when a baby is newly born, it's very soft. There's an anatomical term for it, the something fontanelle, but you use Mahamarma oil, 1 or 2 drops. It's best to use the oil at the last step of your samadhi set, but just go clockwise as if you're looking down on your head with your ring finger, 7, 14, 21, and then hold your head with your palm like that for about 30 seconds. And do that at the very end of samadhi set. That will give more power to the Adipati Marma itself. You get more marut energy, and also filter out any bad energy that's trying to get down your spine. Okay, what else? So 11 tips. Let me go over those 11 tips real quick, because they don't involve, they're very simple. Let me find my slide with that. 11 tips. Where are we? He also gave us a lot of recipes. They're just very simple, mostly kind of dessert-like recipes, but he wants us to increase our soma, because that's what EMF is drying or burning, is soma. So we need to increase our soma. So these are like somagenic recipes. I'm not going to go over the recipes. That's too much. But I'm going to find 11 tips on my slides here because that is important. These 11 different tips. Okay, here's our 11 countermeasures, which you developed long ago. And they're very easy to do, and they're pretty much don't cost anything, actually. One is put plants in your bedroom, nice plants. Another one is walk under the moonlight when the moon is full or close to full, because you can use that soma. Kind of hard to do here in Iowa this time of year, but when it's warmer, you can definitely get out and spend time under the full moon and lay on the ground, lay on the earth, and be or walk or try to get out in nature and be under the trees, the green trees, and especially if it's near the ocean or a lake. And another tip, you'll find that it works like a magic. Within 5 minutes is to hug and hold a big tree, because these big trees have a lot of earthy soma, which absorbs the corrupt Agni and the corrupt Marut. That tree will absorb it. Just be careful of insects. That you can get bit by insects hugging these trees. But hugging and holding a large, healthy tree can be very useful, especially for your sadak pitta and your sadak agni, to help balance you emotionally. If you're feeling a little cranky or reactive or angry or anything to do with emotional disturbances, hugging the big tree can be very helpful. And just rinse your face with cool water. I have to remember that more often myself. To get up from your computer, go rinse your face with cool water. It'll clean the EMF out of your aura. And we have this wonderful eye drop. It's called Soma Netra eye drops. It's very good because your eyes are getting really impacted by EMF. I think everybody knows that. They've experienced it. How tired. I had a friend just talking about her eyes just the other day, and she's on the computer a lot, probably more than I am even. And she said her eyesight's going, and I recommended Soma Netra eye drops. But there's another technique. We have a skin clay. It's just called skin clay, SVA skin clay. It's a powder. You can make a paste of that powder and take a strip of cheesecloth, double folded organic type cheesecloth, not the regular chemical bleach kind. Make a thin paste, spread it on one side of that cloth, make it wide enough to cover your eyes and your temples, and just cover it and put that side with the clay to the outside, put it over your eyes, and lay down on your bed 10 or 15 minutes. You'll be amazed at how much better your eyes feel. So again, that's skin clay. Make a paste with water. Don't make it too runny. Keep it a little bit thick so it doesn't run through and get on your eyes. You have to do this with your eyes closed, obviously. And put the clay side out. You'll feel the coolness immediately. Immediately, your eyes will feel more like within 10 seconds. But within 10 minutes, you'll be amazed at how refreshed you feel, not only your eyes, but mentally as well. And then at bedtime, you can get all this from Vajramishra's website, how to give yourself a mini facial treatment using Lalita's age-defying facial cream to take care of these marmas that are getting on your face, which are getting impacted by EMF. I mentioned do the samadhi set before meditation, or stand alone for that matter. And to help take this EMF vibration out from the nadis and kind of, Vajra likes to say, kind of recycle it back to nature, you can, I mentioned the DGL, I mentioned the prana flow on your spine, but you can also swipe from your elbows off your fingertips use DGL first, one arm, then do super sport, then DGL. Again, it's elbows. I'll try to show you here, like swiping. Use the DGL, both sides, do 7 minimum, but up to 21. And then apply your prana flow and do 7 to 21. And then do from your knees down off your toes. A lot of used not only do you release corrupt pranic energy, because even with real prana, we use that prana, but sometimes that used prana gets stuck in the nadis. We want to release that used prana, and the body does that pretty much automatically. But when synthetic EMFs or synthetic prana gets blended in with the nadis, then we don't release that used prana. It interferes with releasing the used prana. So this simple way of swapping down from the elbows to the fingertips and the knees to the toes and a little bit outwards into space is helping to release a lot of that used. It opens the nadis. It will help release the used prana, because these are the normal, natural avenues for releasing used prana back, recycling it back to nature from where it came. So that swapping, that's one of the first things Bajra Mishra's taught me after I met him, how to do the swapping of the arms, lower arms and lower legs. And of course, again, we're talking about all this Agni, all this etheric Marut energy. So drink plenty of not high pH. You don't want it to be too high, but a good pH spring water. Don't drink this cheap filtered water. Doesn't have soma. It may not have as many impurities, but it doesn't have soma. You want real spring water, which has soma, and be sure you're getting enough of it. So you get more soma in your physiology. And then, again, I mentioned we have special recipes, more alkalizing food. And simply, commonsensically, we could say, minimize your exposure to EMF as much as you can, which means he would always tell his clients to stop computer use. We're past that point, but he would tell them to stop using their computer by 7 p.m. And the cell phone and the TV and all these electronic devices. Don't even have them in your bedroom. I'll tell another quick story about was a different guy. He came to me. I think I might have mentioned this before. Another Indian client came to my house in New Jersey for a marmor treatment. He had a frozen shoulder. He could barely move it. And I said, "Do you have a computer next to your left shoulder, the one that was impacted?" He said, "Oh yeah, it's on my nightstand. It's probably not even 6 inches away from the edge of my bed." And I gave him a marmor treatment, and he started moving his arm. He said, "That's like 50% better. I could barely move my arm." I said, "See, so the problem is not with the hardware, your muscles or your nerves or your tendons. The problem is with the software, the nadis." So we clean the nadis and empowered those nadis to deliver more prana. And I said, you got to get that computer out of your, bedroom, not even much less next to your arm. Someone was telling me just 4 days ago, she has a friend that sleeps with her cell phone on under her pillow, under her freaking pillow. I couldn't believe it. I said, you have to tell your friend, don't. This is craziness. And then I met a gentleman. This is in person. I don't remember who it was. He had his cell phone on his heart in his front pocket. The part of the body that needs the most rhythmic intelligence is the heart. And it was right there. And I said, it may not be any of my business, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You have to take that cell phone out of your shirt pocket. This is going to impact your heart. Sooner or later, you're going to damage your heart with that. So again, these are common sense things. Get more sleep, get more soma, minimize your usage of computers. If you're going to listen, what I did, because I have to transcribe a lot of Vajra's videos. I try just to do it at home a lot where I can use my computer speaker, but I do like to go to the cafe and work sometimes. So I got a special type of headset, which has the last 6 inches is an air tube. It's not a wire. It has a wire, but the last 6 inches is actually just a hollow tube. So the wire portion is away from my head quite a bit. And I can work with that. It's a little bit aggravating, but not nearly as much as what I was feeling when I used the regular type of earpiece with the wire. it did help. It helped a lot, actually.
Mhm.
So that's another simple thing, things like that. What else can we say? There's a lot else we could say, but I think time is up. So we'll open up for questions.
Okay, I think we will. Jim, thank you. That was great. That was lots of things to think about, and yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of products also outside Ayurveda on the market to reduce EMF exposure as well, in terms of screen through your computer with the blue light, a variety of things. So
Yeah, your things right.
yeah. I think nothing compares to just being in nature and spending time in nature, though, and sunlight.
Yes, I do that every day. I get out for a walk in nature
Yeah, exactly.
virtually every day for an hour.
Awesome, awesome. Um, that'll get more challenging in Iowa as time goes on, but anyway.
Oh, it will. It will.
Well, thank you. This was awesome. We are actually doing, Jim. We're at the top of the hour, so we'll close the video, but we'll stay for questions. We'll close the recording, I mean. But just to say that Jim and I are doing a podcast on Friday, noon Central Time, and it will be on the same topic, but a Q&A. And
I think Eva's still here. Does she have any questions?
he is. Yeah, we'll stop the recording and then we'll open it for questions.